All right, well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. If you've forgotten what this webinar is for, we're doing the REDCap webinar to teach everyone about data collection. I'm Jordan, Jordan Kamel. You might remember me from the kickoff meeting, and I was also lurking in the background for the stakeholder meeting, just kind of taking notes. And just to reintroduce everybody, we've got Aubrey here and got Sarah, who have in no small part made all of this possible. So, so this is going to be slightly different than some webinars. Like, I know lots of them like to work with PowerPoint presentations, but I'm going to be going through and just kind of showing you the website itself so we can click around it and get more of a hands-on look of the website. That being said, I believe Tasha, we sent out an email with the PowerPoint. So that's meant to be a visual aid, and I'll be following the general flow of that PowerPoint so you can follow along. And if you're feeling more adventurous, you are also welcome to click through the website as I'm doing it, just so you get like an understanding, because I know that people have different ways of learning and they're more comfortable either just kind of passively taking in the information or being more active in doing so. So I want to kind of respect that. And before I get too far into things, can everybody see my mouse on the web page all right, or is it too hard to track? Let me know if you're having any problems there.
It's pretty clear.
All right, thank you, Aaron. And the other thing I'll mention before we get started is if you have any questions, I'll ask that you please hold them till the end of the webinar. The way teaching REDCap kind of works is like you'll probably have a whole bunch of questions as I'm going through stuff, but there is a decent chance that hopefully I will cover a lot of those questions that you'll have kind of bubbling beneath the surface. So if you have any, sit tight, and if I end up not answering them, please feel free to ask them at the end. So with that being said, I'll get started. So for REDCap, we invited everybody to set up an account some time ago, and then an email should have hit your inboxes yesterday saying that you've been added to a specific project. Has everybody received those, or are there folks out there that have not received them? Just to get a sense of if I need to contact admins for that.
I just check it at the end.
Right, we will check in at the end then, and if you find that you try going to the site later and you can't get access, let us know and we'll get you set up with that. So, of course, the first step of getting into REDCap is the login screen. And in future, if you ever have difficulties getting into the site, like once you're set up and you're going, there's a button up here that will link you to our wonderful administrator, Jeanette, who can help you out if you get locked out. And if you forget your password in the future, there's, of course, the forget your password button, and it has your security question that you set up when you first set up your REDCap account. Something like, what's your first childhood cat, something like that. So that's how you get your password back. So going to log in here. And so upon first logging in, you have the My Projects page. So for us, we're only going to have, for the folks on this project, we should only have one project available to us at the start because we're just working on the RPE project to enter in data. And so you'll also notice a whole lot of buttons on this page, specifically at the top here. But most of those you won't have to worry about. The only ones that I will shout out are the help and FAQ and the training videos. They're not my favorite materials for learning REDCap, but it's better than having nothing. So sometimes it's just enough to like jog the memory of being like, oh, right, that's how you do this specific thing. So those resources are there, even if they're not my favorite resources in the world. They get the job done. So we'll jump in here by clicking our project here. And you're taken to either the project homepage or the project setup page. We're on the project setup page right now. Generally, when you log into REDCap, it will take you to your most recent screen that you were on, like the last time you logged in. So keep that in mind when you log in. It'll probably take you to that page. The project setup page,
Jordan, we can't hear you anymore.
I saw that is probably.
Maybe put it over here.
Yeah, so I don't accidentally tap it. Good call. Thank you.
That was the last thing people heard.
Yeah.
Just that when you log in,
Is there anything?
it'll take you to the most recent page that you were working on. That was the last thing that we heard.
Gotcha. All right. So the thing that I said right after that was that whenever I'm learning a new program or how to use a new website, I start by looking at the edges of the pages. So in this case, the left edge or the left panel and the top two tabs here for navigation. So I'll start by describing the tab that we're currently on, which is Project Setup, and then this tab, and then moving to the sides here. So the project setup page is actually the one page that you will have no use of, really. And I've actually set up a dummy account to properly convey what you'll be seeing. So if you find yourself on this page, don't worry, you won't be able to do anything on it. So you'll notice if I try clicking the millions of things on here, there's a big no symbol on it. So there's nothing here for you. And if you manage to forget, the system will let you know that there's nothing there for you. So we'll just go to Project Home here. Okay, that's more like it and a little bit more approachable. So Project Home is also pretty limited in information that will be of use for you, but it'll be the one that you're most likely to see when you log in. So really, you'll see a list of users that are on the project. So you'll see all the folks in our organization, various organizations here, exporting data in Codebook, which I don't anticipate anybody needing, having much use of, but if you have questions about it in future, let me know and I'd be happy to kind of describe that. But really, we're going to be spending a vast majority of your time is within the buttons on the left side of the page here. So you kind of have the three main sections, which are your data collection, the applications, and this is just general top level REDCap stuff. So my projects, which was the page that we were just at when we were choosing the project, my project home, which is where we're at now. So we are all here to learn about entering data. How the heck do we enter data into this website here? So you have really two main methods of entering in data into REDCap, and surprise, they fall under the data collection category of things. And really the choice there is mostly up to preference. Some may choose to use this one, and others may choose to use record status dashboard. So that might sound kind of odd, like if they do the same thing, why have different choices there? So I'll get into those differences here by starting off with view/edit records. So if we click there, oh, I think somebody else just joined the meeting. Hello? All right, well, maybe they'll check with us later. Okay, so view edit records. So on this page, you'll see we have a few boxes here, drop down boxes specifically. So what I would like to draw everybody's attention to is this main box here. So REDCap organizes data into things called records. In our case, records are going to refer to each primary strategy. So whether it be, I forget them every time, but like
Safe Haven's Gender Equity Reading Initiative.
Yes.
Or Malash's Social Norm statewide campaign.
Exactly.
Big bucket strategies.
Perfect. Thank you, Sarah. So yeah, we have records for each one of those specifically per organization. So the first thing that you're tasked with doing is choosing which record ID or strategy, in our case, we would like to work on. So you can see here in the first drop box, it's already highlighted as primary strategies. And I'll get into a little more of this drop box later. But the thing that you'll want if you're choosing your primary strategy is selecting your record in this drop box here. So if you wanted to go through data entry with the view/edit records route, you would simply click this drop box and choose the strategy that you're working on. So in this fake account that I made, I said that MPHI was working on crime prevention through environmental design, and that was the only strategy we were working on. Your organization will likely have 2 to 4 of these, I believe. So if that is the case for your organization, you'll see the entire list of them being right here so that you can choose from them. And you'll notice on this page that there's this big scary yellow box that says data should not be entered in the project. Do not worry about that. You're not breaking the system or anything. That appears as it should in the system. So that is method 1 to choosing the strategy that you'd like to enter data for. So the other one that I mentioned was the record status dashboard. Aha. And so you'll notice here that we have this big table here. We've got a couple drop boxes and a legend. So what I'll first kind of take you through is this table here. So this table is meant to give you this broad kind of overview of all of the different strategies that your organization may be working on. So if MPHI was working on more than one, we would have crime prevention, and then another strategy below it, and then another strategy below it. So 1 row for each strategy. But really what this table is meant to convey to you is where the quarterly report is in terms of like how much data has been put into it so far, what's still incomplete, that sort of thing. So the way you gain understanding of that, I'm gonna minimize that there, is the legends. So the big box up here, which is very helpful for understanding this, tells you that these bubbles below each column, the columns, by the way, represents sections of the report that you'll be filling out. So strategy, activities, reach, are all sections under quarterly reports. So if you have a red circle, it means it's incomplete. It means that somebody has been into this section of the report and most likely started putting data in. They just haven't finished it. There's yellow for unverified and green for incomplete. And then additionally, you'll notice with my specific strategy, there's a stack of bubbles. It means that there are many statuses in there. So that might mean that somebody has entered in data for Q1 and Q2 and so on and so forth. So you'll only be entering in data for quarterly reports. And if we scroll along further in this table, we have initial strategies. Mine looks different from what yours will, but this initial strategy is something that you will not have to worry about because you had an interview with the wonderful Tasha, and we pre-populated all of the initial strategy information ahead of time. So these bubbles should all appear as green. And if for some reason they don't, please let us know and we'll make sure that that gets fixed right away. And if you, for some reason, did want to just kind of check and see what your answers were when you had that interview with Tasha, you can go in there and kind of look at the past and see what you answered for those. So that's the initial strategy over there. And one thing that I forgot to mention on this table is that before the name of your primary strategy, you'll notice there's a number right here. The number itself is not something that you need to be concerned about. It doesn't mean anything. When we make new records in REDCap, it auto numbers. So if we made another one, it'd be 29, 30, 31, and so on and so forth. So that's just a way that we make sure that data doesn't get mixed up and we lose track of who answered what. So that is the table there. And above it, we have different ways of displaying this table. So if you had a whole bunch of different strategies, I don't think any of us will have more than what can fit on this page, but you could tab through it that way. But something that's maybe a little bit more useful is this drop box, which will allow you to either just see the initial report or the quarterly report. So if we just hit quarterly report, you can see that the initial one is no longer on the side over here. We just have the one that you will be mainly concerned with entering in data for. So that is that status dashboard there. But what we want to do is enter in data for this primary strategy. So to do that, we're going to click on this number here. If you, for some reason, already know which section of the quarterly report that you're working on and you want to hop right into it, you can click one of these bubbles and it will take you straight to that section and save you a step. But for us, since we're pretending like we are just going in here for the first time, we're going to click on this number. So that takes us to the record homepage. And before I get too deep into describing what the record homepage is, I just want to reiterate that you can get to this page just as easily by going through the View/Edit Records page. So I'm just going to demonstrate that real quickly. So if I clicked there and then chose my record, it takes us right to the same page. So that's why at the beginning of this whole spiel, I wanted to tell you that really, like, you have two ways of accomplishing the same thing, but they have kind of different roles, whether you want to have this nice broad overview of everything going on for your organization, or if you're like, hey, I just want to get in there and enter in data, like I know where I'm going, let's just kind of get to it. So let's talk about the record homepage now. So we see those lovely little bubbles again with the different colors. And as it so happens, they have the same exact meanings here as they did on the status dashboard. So we have that legend up there in case we forget what red, yellow, and green mean. And we have our different instruments here. So we have our quarterly reports, quarter 1, and quarterly reports, quarter 2. And I'll get into having different quarters a little bit later, but you'll be able to add new quarters to this page as we progress through the quarters and the years together. And of course, the initial strategy, which again, these will all be green. So if they're not all green, you can panic and let us know. No, you don't need to panic, but please let us know. All right, so we still have the sections here. So the rows are now sections in this table. So the initial strategy has all the sections here, and the quarterly reports have all the sections here. So again, like with the status dashboard, if you click on a bubble, it will take you straight into that section of the report. So we're going to hop in here to the strategy activities. Okay. Oh, I didn't actually click it. Good job, me. Okay. So, we finally made it to a page where we can enter data in 3 years later. So thanks for sticking with me to this point. But before I get into the actual data entry part, one thing that I would like to call your attention to is the left side of the screen. So you'll notice that that has changed. It used to just have your 2 little buttons here for the dashboard and the view edit records. That section has now expanded to include all the different sections of the quarterly report that you're entering in data for. So this can be handy for if you need to jump around different sections, or if you just need to know where you're at progress-wise in the different sections. So you can see easily here on the left side, like, hey, like maybe I already finished filling out barriers, like cool, I don't have to go back to that section. I can jump over to facilitators later, of course, if it was green. So that's a lot handier way of jumping through sections, because otherwise you would have to go back to the record homepage and then find your section and then click into it. Which, by the way, if you wanted to go back to that homepage, you would simply click this button here and it would take us back to the page we're at. Or there's always the back button, which is cool too. So I promised data entry, so this is the data entry part. So these quarterly reports are adapted by the Word documents that everyone should have access to. If not, we can absolutely send more copies of that out. But if you're somebody that's more comfortable working in Microsoft Word, you are more than welcome to like enter in your data there just so that you have it for yourself, and then at a later time, like entering in data here or copying and pasting if that's more your style. So please feel free to use that Word document as your resource for either following along with this tool or just for yourself to kind of keep tabs on where you're at with things. So the data entry for REDCap is not dissimilar to something like SurveyMonkey. It's very much like, hey, you have a text box, you type stuff into it. One feature of REDCap that's really helpful for us is that for some questions, it will restrict what you can put into a text box. So like let's take this first question, for example, which is, please provide the number of activities completed for this strategy quarter. So obviously this question is asking for a number, so it would not accept something like hot dogs because that's not a number. And if you tried entering in hot dogs, it'd say, hey, like this is not an actual integer. Please try again. Don't enter hot dogs. So if we tried entering in a real number like 11, ta-da, it accepts that as a valid choice. So you'll see fields like that as you progress through the quarterly reports. So be aware of that when you're entering in data. Please don't enter in hot dogs as a number. So another thing to be aware of when you're clicking through the responses is that you'll have these buttons here that represent your multiple choice questions. Some of them will be check boxes if it's a check all that apply, for example, but those will be squares. So these are just yes or no. Were there any translation projects developed this quarter? So gonna scroll down a little bit here so you can choose either yes or no, obviously. So we're gonna click yes. Oh, something just changed about this page. When you choose some responses, there's a thing in REDCap called branching logic. And that's basically REDCap's way of saying that if you answer something for some questions, you'll have questions appearing later on in the report that you now have to answer. The good news for everyone here is that that means if you can see a question, you likely have the information to answer it, and you don't have to worry about, oh man, should I enter in anything for this question or should I skip it? This branching logic helps you out so that you don't have to worry about that because anything that needs to be skipped will automatically be skipped based off the things that you answer. So if I were to change this response, for example, to no, we no longer...
Can you just close my
yeah,
screen so it will stop
Yeah.
popping up? Thank you.
No problem. Sorry, Dory and Aaron. Talk to you later. So if you select no, you now notice that that question is now gone. So you don't have to worry about answering that question, which is great. And if you wanted to reverse course because you're like me and you're clumsy, it's just as easy to hit yes. And like magic, that question now appears right there. Another thing that you'll notice about this is that you can't really hit delete on a multiple choice question, and you can't unclick it to get rid of it. If you need to delete a response for a multiple choice question, there's a button in the corner right here that says reset, and now it's cleared out that response. And of course, if you wanted to delete the information in a text box, it's as simple as just hitting backspace, and your data's gone. So that's the basics of just getting stuff onto REDCap, but there's something extremely important that I need to talk about, and if you take absolutely nothing else from this webinar, I want this to stick. And it pains me that REDCap does it this way, but REDCap does not autosave. It never autosaves anything that you put in. So if I were to type this here and I got distracted by something else happening in Teams and I clicked away from this page, poof, it's gone. If I walked away from my computer, went to the bathroom and somebody logged in, poof, it's gone. So just remember that REDCap does not autosave. Fortunately, they give you two ways that you can save, well, two sections of the page that you can save at. So if I get this out of the way and put it right here, whenever you're scrolling throughout a REDCap instrument, this box up here stays with you. It just kind of floats along there. That is one option for saving. And at the bottom of every single instrument, you'll also have the same two buttons here. So you'll notice that it's not quite as simple as just like a Word document where there's just that save icon and you click it and you go back to what you were doing. Nope, they give you a few options here. So we have save and exit form. And if you were to click this button, what it would do is take you back to that record homepage that we were just at. And then you have save and stay, which is the equivalent of that save icon that you have in Microsoft Office. But you'll notice there's also a drop box here, so you have more save options if you feel like making your life more complicated, which we all are always looking to do. So we have save and go to the next form. A form is the same thing as what I've been describing as a section. So if you hit save and go to the next form, here it would take you to the section that's called reach, which is the next section of the quarterly report. So you have that as an option. You have save and exit record, which will either take you based off how you got here to the record status dashboard or view and edit records. So that's another option there. And then the last option on this drop-down list is save and go to the next record. So if you recall, next record in our case would be the next primary strategy that your organization has. So if you were working on multiple different strategies that day and you wanted to work on, let's say, the same section, but just for the next strategy, that would be a quick way of saving and going to the next strategy for specifically this section, which is strategy activities. So those are your options. So I will hit save and stay, and you'll notice that it scrolls back up to the top of the page and it says, hey, record 28 is successfully edited. Hooray, we didn't lose our stuff. And of course, I should mention that there's also a cancel button. If you decided that you were just hanging out in REDCap just for fun and you didn't want anything to be permanent. So let's see. So that is data entry in a nutshell. So before I move on, I want to reiterate REDCap, no autosaving. And I thought I got rid of team, but it's still haunting us right now. So we are going to quit it. There we go.
Now everyone got to see my very scary calendar.
Yeah, I shiver every time I look at it to this day. There was a glitch and we're recovering. Oh my God.
It refuses to die.
Yeah. Well, it at least recognized it as do not disturb, so it should just completely mute all that stuff. Okay, other sections of the quarterly report that I want to shout out, if we're looking at the sections here on the left side, are strategy-specific outcomes. So if we go to that section of it, these, like the title implies, are specific to the strategy that you're working on. So in this case, MPHI is working on crime prevention through environmental design. So only questions pertinent to that strategy will be displayed here. That's kind of where that branching logic comes into play. So I won't be seeing questions related to the other strategies here, just the ones that I'm working on. And then the last one here that I will navigate to are essential elements. which is in parentheses as Q4 only. So we are obviously not in Q4 right now. So if you were to navigate to that section, you get a big blank page full of nothing. So that means that you don't have to worry about that because it's not Q4 right now. So you have no information on these questions. So those are the kind of more specific sections that we have there for you. And so one thing that I have not mentioned yet is the last question that is on every single section of the quarterly report, and really every single REDCap instrument, is complete. So that is actually the way that you change the color of these bubbles. And it's really there so that you can track your progress through the quarterly report and through all of the instruments. So whenever you jump into a section, it will automatically change the answer to this question to incomplete, which is the red bubble, if you'll recall what the legend displays. So if you wanted to change that, you would have it as, you would click this drop box and choose one of your three choices of unverified. If you wanted to change it from something else to incomplete, incomplete is still there, and complete. So let's take a look at what happens if we say complete and then save and exit form. So it takes us back to the record homepage, and aha, we have a green bubble there now. So that can be a way for your organization to keep track of the progress through the section. And one of our thoughts going into this is that for people entering in data, the easiest way to track your progress through the quarterly report might be to use unverified once you're done with a section, and then having a supervisor check it over. And so this will signal to the supervisor, oh, data entry is complete for this section. I can look this over and scroll through it. Okay, this all looks good, even though it's blank. That's the way we like it. No data. Forget MPHI, we don't need them. And we are complete. So we choose complete, and we know, and your organization now knows that, hey, that section is done. We don't have to worry about it anymore. So that's where those bubbles come into play and how they can help you kind of progress through this process.
And so our expectation, and I believe Jessica Grizzle's expectation, would be that by the 15th of the month, after the quarter ends, so the first one, January 15th, that we would see for that quarter all green bubbles, indicating that you've completed all of those sections.
Exactly. And once that 15th date passes, we're going to lock the quarter just so that there's not any accidental clicking backwards and changing stuff from the way it was, just so we don't lose anything, because that would be a real bummer if that happens. So if you find yourself being in need of having to fix old questions from previous quarters, let us know and we'll unlock it for you so that we can get that fixed for you. So that is the last thing to keep in mind for specifically primary strategies. So that is that. Moving on, if you were particularly observant, you'll notice that when we were in View, Edit Records, and Record Status Dashboards, there was a different option besides the primary strategies. So I'll tell you what that is all about by showing you both pages again. So in this drop box, we have a drop box here because there's more than one choice. And primary strategies is called an ARM. That's REDCap's terminology for having like completely different areas of REDCap for different types of information. So we wanted to keep all of our primary strategies in one spot, but if we click this drop box, we have an option for something that we're calling supplementary work. So this kind of stuff is reserved for if your organization has done any work that you would like to highlight that your primary strategies maybe don't 100% capture. We wanted to give you that option. So that would be where ARM2 supplementary work comes in. And so this all works identically to primary strategies and how you navigate around, fortunately. So if you were to click ARM2, you now have your records available that are in ARM2, which will not be labeled as primary strategies because this is not related to that. So in my case, we have MPHI. And if we go to the record status dashboard and you wanted to get to the same area, you would now, so we won't see it here because this is specifically displaying only quarterly reports, which is the drop box I chose earlier. So if we went to the default one and see the whole picture, you'll notice there is a second tab on this table called supplementary work. So if we click there, same kind of idea. You can go to the one section of supplementary work or go to the record homepage. And so, yep, the supplementary instrument is meant to be extremely simple. So if you have something here, currently we just have one box there for entering in data there. So use that as you feel necessary.
And just to reiterate what Jordan said, this is just to capture those sort of special opportunities you have within a quarter that might fall outside of your 3 or 4 primary strategies. So this is a place where you can still report on those, but with recognition that they're not part of the main components of your work.
Exactly.
And supplementary work.
Exactly. Thank you, Sarah. And so with that, we are going to stop for a quiz. Hooray!
We got one chat. So I wanted to, there was a chat from someone in the, in the Zoom.
Let's see.
A question that we should hold till the end, or?
It's Jessica to everyone. The grantee will submit the following reports to SVP. Oh, I should pull it up here so I don't have to read it out loud to you.
I think if you go to that bar at the top where it says stop share.
Oh, right.
No, there's chat at the bottom too. There we go.
Yeah, she's telling us the dates for when those quarters are, because me personally, I would not remember those dates off the top of my head. So thank you, Jessica. Okay, so quiz time. What we would like for everyone to do, just to see how everyone's feeling so far, is go to this website. If you feel more comfortable going on your phone because you don't want to navigate away from the meeting, feel free to grab your phone, go to this website, www.menti.com, and enter in the code 486835. Nope. Oh, good call. This slide is not activated. It must be because it's just been sitting for a second. Yeah. Okay, so the first question.
8 participants yet.
That number will only display once somebody answers the question. So we can't tell if anybody's on the page. So we'll give everybody ample time to answer the question. So the question that we would like to know the answer to is, where do you go to see or enter data? And Just to clarify, those sections are A, B, the section here, and C. So once you get to that page, feel free to select your answer. And it looks, zoom in on it.
On the picture?
Yes.
Control and then.
Control. Aha.
No.
Mine tastes kind of weird, but
Yeah, it doesn't like them. Reset.
Weird.
Yeah. Let's see, we got 4 people, and how many participants? We got 10 participants. So we'll give everybody.
Mandatory fun, people.
Yeah. Fun for us, not fun for you, Tim. Really, my job when I wanted to grow up was to be a game show host. So this is me living out my childhood dream.
living your dream.
More Regis Philbin than any other host. So that's who I try to emulate.
Regis Philbin.
Who would have thunk? All right. Well, we'll give it a go since we've got 5 people in here. So let's see what everybody answered. Woohoo! Everyone answered B. Well, I've got good news. That is the correct answer. Good job, everybody. And let's go on to the next question here. And it looks like somebody just got in under the wire there. Okay, next question here. This one's tricky. I like this one. So, you finished entering in data for this form. Where do you click now? And in case you're confused, we have A, which is this drop box here, B, which is the save buttons, or C, which is cancel.
Do, 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 do. I'm finally fulfilling my dream of becoming a, I don't know, a cabaret singer for a game show.
We all have different dreams. I think I hear a ghost. Or a disgruntled contestant.
Right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
All right, let's see what we got here. We have some disagreement here, which is kind of the way this question was meant to be designed to do. So the key part of this question here is you finished entering in data for this form, which means that hopefully you have already saved at this point because REDCap does not autosave. So what we're specifically asking here is to track your progress through the quarterly report. What do you do next? And so the correct answer that we were looking for is A.
Ooh, a trick question. Someone left. They were so mad.
And they're like, you know what? This game show is rigged. I don't like the look on that guy's face. So yeah, we had to throw a kind of trick one in there. But yes, if it is never, if I go back to that slide, I think we just got our person that left us. So it is always a good idea. It is never the wrong answer to click on B. I will say that. It's never bad to click on B. But when you're done entering in data, everything's set, definitely go to A and mark the status of that section. So, all right, so the next question is, you finished all the forms for each strategy. Now where should you go to enter info about work outside of these strategies? Oh, and I should do this since I did this for the other questions. We have A, which is up here, B, which is up here, or down here, C, which is over here, and D, which is not on this page, which is I want to go home and hang out with my dog. Which is my answer, actually the correct answer. Right. Looks like we have 6 people in, so hey, everybody got it right. It's C, which is supplementary work for reference there. All right. Good job, everyone. Thanks for participating in this game. We have a second half of this quiz, but for now, we are going to go back to REDCap. So I'm going to wait for that toolbar to go away. Go away. Thank you. All right, so back into REDCap. So if I reorient myself here, we just finished talking about supplementary work. So the next thing that I would like to go over, if we go back to the primary strategies, is how the heck do we answer in new quarters once we're done with quarter 1, quarter 2, etc. So if we allow ourselves to go back, and just so that everybody knows what I'm doing, I'm going back to view edit records. I'm going back to select record under primary strategies and choosing that. Okay, cool. So you'll notice that I specifically have 2 records here already, but it's not always like that. When you first start working, you will just have this one column here, and there won't actually be a number because you haven't entered in data for any quarterly reports yet. So how do we do that? So if you look up here, you'll notice that we have a button that says Add New. And what that means for us is that it allows us to add new quarters, 3, 4, 5, 60 quarters. So if we click that button, we get a new column that just shows up right next to it, and it's nicely highlighted in green so that we know it's new. And we are now able to enter in data for that quarter. So what I will note about hitting this button is that if we were to navigate away from this page or hit refresh, we now lose that quarter. And that's only because we haven't entered in anything for it. It's blank. So REDCap says, okay, like we don't need to display this because it's just blank. So you would simply click up there again, and then you would start entering in data by navigating to the section of your choice. Another thing that you'll notice is that there's not another Add New Quarter button up here. And that is also because that this quarter is currently blank. So REDCap says that you shouldn't be adding another quarter if you don't even have any information for quarter 3. So if we go in here just for the sake of this example and enter in a number that's not hot dogs, we will save and exit so that we have data there. So now that we're back at, and I realize I did that a little bit fast. So what I did was I entered in data there, and then I went up here and hit save and exit form to take us back to the record homepage. So doing that again, we're back where we started. And now that we have data in for quarter 3, we have a button that says Add New. So we can go on our merry way and continue adding quarters in this way.
That being said, we would not recommend adding quarters before you need to. Don't want to muddy the waters or accidentally put something in an incorrect quarter.
Oh, and I just noticed Erin mentioned if there are any prizes for doing well on this quiz. Kind of, it's just your own personal self-satisfaction. So you can take that home with you and keep it forever. So the last thing that I'll mention about adding quarters is that aside from the Add New Quarter button, we have this button up here that looks kind of like a rewind button. And as this pop-up box so helpfully describes, it allows you to collapse or uncollapse the repeating events. The repeating events in this case being a quarter. So if we click that, it will only show you the first quarter and then the most recent quarter that you have data entered in for. So you're of course not going to see quarter 60 in here because we don't have data for that. And if you would prefer to see all 60 quarters because you've been here for that long, you click that button and it expands to show you all of them. So that is quarters. So that is really like the main overview there of data entry. So now that I've kind of described all of those main features, what I'd now like to move on to is tools that may aid you throughout the process of entering in data. So I have a few things that we can help us along this journey of entering in data. So the first one, according to this handy PowerPoint that I have next to me, is the ability to download instruments. So this may help you in the future, like if you just want a hard copy of what you've entered in, or if you want a blank hard copy just so that you can show somebody, or that you can write stuff in, scratch paper, use it in your fireplace, whatever you would like to do. So we would do that by, once we're in a section of the quarterly report, at the top of every section, we have a button that says download PDF of instruments. So if we click that, it gives us a whole bunch of choices. And I won't go into what all of these specifically mean, but there are two main categories of how you can download a PDF. It is either this data entry form with different options there are 3, and all data entry forms. So that would be all of the sections. So we will just say this data entry form with saved data, just to show you what that looks like. So you'll notice Google Chrome downloaded it, and it's over here. So we're going to open it. Okay. So now that it's downloaded, you see this pretty nice version of what the REDCap site looks like. And I only answered the one question there, so that's the only one that's filled in. And that is how the PDF will look. Hopefully not as laggy as it is on this computer though. So that is downloading instruments. The next tool that you may find helpful in your journey through entering in data is the field comments. So field comments are a way of, as the name implies, entering in a comment. And this may be helpful for if there's something weird going on with a specific question where you might not know how to answer it best, because speaking as someone that's entered in data, like sometimes like life is more complicated than the question thinks it is. So you might say, hey, like, I don't know if this one activity called hot dogs actually counts as an activity. So I would like somebody on my project to know that I have some questions about this specific question. So to leave a comment on a specific question, there is a bubble, and it's kind of hard to see, so I'm going to try and zoom in a little bit. It is also Control. That's the button. Okay. And now I can scroll. Oh yeah, there it is. So it's this little bubble here that says view comment log when you hover over it, but if you click it, you pop up with the ability to comment on it. And so you can ask your question here. So I know hot dogs, we'll say, because that's the theme.
That's the theme.
That's the theme. So you type in your question or comments, and you click the button here, and it is now saved. So that's your way of adding a specific comment or question to a question. So I'm going to zoom out here, back to the normal size. And you might be thinking to yourself, well, that's great, but how's anyone going back through here going to even notice that I had a question about something? Well, one more subtle thing that REDCap does is it now highlights this question bubble in yellow, which will display the comments if you were to click on it. But something more helpful is called the field comment log. So, and one thing that I have failed to mention is that there's this handy thing here that lets you collapse sections on the left panel if like this is too much. So if you click that, it just shrinks it down for you. If you click it again, it will open it back up. So handy little usability tool there. So now that we can see this next section called applications over here, we have what's called the field comment log. So going there, we can see all of the field comments for the entirety of the project. So with that in mind, if someone in a different organization had a question about a question, they would all display here regardless of what organization you belong to. So I could see Moash, Kent County, everybody on this page. And you have different ways of kind of filtering and refining this table in case we end up with a whole bunch of comments. So you can filter by record or strategy. You can filter by the question or the user. So who asked this great question? It was MPHI RPE. So the comments appear here. You can see what it is there. You can see when it happened and at what time. You can see the question, and you can see the strategy that it was for. And if you would prefer to have a larger view of it, there's this button here that says one comment. And you can, once you're on the screen, you can either edit the comment in the event that it was one that you made or delete it, or add another comment if you have an ongoing conversation about why there are no hot dogs, so that you can get to the bottom of that. And so if you would prefer to go directly into the quarterly report where that question was asked, there is the button here that will take you directly into that section of the quarterly report and also for the quarter that it was asked in. So we have this strategy, which is the number 28, and the hashtag 1 means it was quarter 1 that this question was asked. So clicking on it, we are taken directly there, and oh, hey, look, this is the question that we, oh, you have logged in from it. Messenger is now inactive. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
And you are taken directly back to this page so you can see why somebody maybe had a question about this field. So that is the field comment log. And I will also mention that if you are in this bubble, you can also navigate to that field comment log with all of the comments through this button right up here. And ta-da, we are taken back to the full log that has all of the great questions and comments here. So that is the field comment log. Next up, if we go right along with the applications, is the file repository. So the file repository is exactly what it sounds like. It is a repository for files. Wow. So what that means for us is that we can put, looks like somebody's joined us. Hello. And so on this page, we have various useful files that we can share across organizations. So this is another thing that I would be able to see if somebody at Safe Haven Ministries uploaded something, it would show up here. So currently what we have, just for everybody that may be of use, is this PowerPoint that we have sent out to everybody. So if you lose it, delete it, dog destroyed your computer, needed to get a new one, you could go back here and get your PowerPoint or any of the various quarterly tools for your organization. And to download it, you would simply click this big download button here. And if you're somebody that did upload this file, you have the options of editing with this pencil, deleting with this red X, or emailing the document securely with that button there.
And over time, this will be a nice place for us to store documents that you may need to access that won't change, so you don't have to try to dig through your email and find them. So as we develop, frequently asked questions documents or other tools, we will direct you to this file repository to find them. And this is also where we will have a link to this recorded webinar stored.
So if there was something that you thought would be useful to the project to upload into REDCap, you would achieve that by going up here to the Upload New File tab and simply choosing the document that you would like to upload. This will go through, of course, your files. So my documents or whatever you may have there. You would name it whatever you'd like to name it. If it's something different, for example, from what the file is named, because sometimes based off of our organization system, sometimes we have to have the name of the file be something very specific that might not make sense to everybody else. So that'd be where you label that and then uploading it or canceling, which is what we're going to do now. All right, so that is the file repository. So the last thing that I would like to shout out that might help us is the REDCap Messenger. And so this is something that specifically I've used on past projects where we had data collection events like a clinic for local participants. So it was really easy to, in real time, communicate with each other because we were at different sides of the building and we said, hey, what's going on with this participant? So REDCap Messenger is a way of achieving communication through real time, much like any other messenger. So if we click there, instead of taking us to a new page, it pops out this nice little sidebar here where you can have conversations with colleagues. So if you're in here, you might have notifications if somebody were to be wanting to get a hold of you, or you would have past conversations archived here. And if you wanted to make a new conversation, you would click this here button, and you now have a list of all of the users across organizations, and you would be able to title it if you'd like, and then start messaging. So that is not something that you will necessarily need through your REDCap data entry, but it's something nice to know if in case you need to have a conversation with somebody within the project and you want it to all kind of be self-contained in one spot. So
it's also more secure than email. So in the event that you were to need to communicate about identifiable information for some reason, even though that's not really part of this project, this is a secure place to do that.
Exactly. So that is all of the extra features that we have for REDCap, which means it's time for me to be a game show host again. So go back to Mentimeter. So if you could grab your smartphone, tablet, and we'll do another quiz. Oh, I was trying to think of Jitterbug. That's the thing that I couldn't think of. Those old people phones that are
For a prize?
No. Like I was saying, like to get to Mentimeter, grab your smart device or jitterbug
Gotcha.
or whatever you
Your flip phone.
See, I got a heart. Somebody got it, even if it was a pity. I got 2. Oh, thank you.
It's really a boon to your self-esteem right now.
It is. We all need that from time to time, right? All right. So our first question here is, you want to add data for a new quarter. What is step 1? So our choices here are A, B over here, or C.
Tricky one.
Yeah, the key phrase being here is step 1. All right, we got 6 people, which was our max for previous questions, so I think we're pretty good there. All right, let's see what we got. All right, so we've got a few people saying A, B, and C. So the correct answer is A. So just to kind of describe what will happen here with each of these buttons. So if we choose C, this is actually very tricky because C is not a button that will appear for most people doing data entry. It appears for people like myself, Aubrey and Sarah, and I believe Jessica will have the ability to create custom dashboards. So if you are not among those people, you will not see C. B will take you directly into a section of the quarterly report, whether you've already started it or it has no data in it at all. So that will take you directly where you enter in data. So A, which is the correct answer, will take you, A will take you directly into the record homepage. And that is where we see the columns with the, oh, I almost gave away the answer to the next question. So I'm going to stop myself and go to the next question, which is, you want to add data for a new quarter. What is step 2? So we have A, which is this one up here, B, which is right here, and C, which is right here. So following the answer from the last question, which is A, will take you to this page. So now is step 2. Man, that was close. I almost cheated at our own game.
You're going to end up giving away $1 million accidentally, Regis.
Yeah, I'm not going to get called into Who Wants to Be a Millionaire like this. Sure if that show's still on. I know Terry Crews was hosting it at one point.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, Terry Crews was great. Put Terry Crews in everything. Okay, we have 6 answers, so let's see what we got. All right, looks like we have B and C. So the correct answer is B, and I'll show you why. So it is, I will say it is kind of small, but if you look very closely, and I'll actually go back to REDCap so we can see it more clearly, that if we go, and I will talk out loud so that we know how I'm getting to this page again. So I'm going to go to the record status dashboard. I'm going to go to ARM 1 because we're in supplementary work right now. I'm going to click this number, which was the answer from that first question. And now we're here. So if from this question, A was this one, which nobody answered, and C was this one here. And that is how you get directly into a section of the quarterly report. So B was meant to highlight this right here, which has your add new quarter button. So just to show that again, if we click it, we have quarter 4, and we can start entering in data for quarter 4. So that's how you do that. All right. So the next question, and I believe the last question, your colleague made comments in REDCap for you to review before marking your forms as complete. Where do you go to see them all? So your choices here are A, which says REDCap Manager. Oh, yeah, what did I say?
Manager.
REDCap Messenger. B, which is down here, is Field Comments Log. Or C, which is this yellow bubble. Well, it's now gray, but it can also be a yellow bubble right here. I also like this question. Do you know that in Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, they started putting time limits on questions? So once you got, I believe, like the first section of questions, you only get like 30 seconds to answer.
That sounds stressful.
Yeah, like that seems to break the spirit of that game show. It was fun to see people like go back and forth between the answers and be like, I don't know. My aunt's birthday is in August, so I feel like the answer is August. All right, so looks like we have all our responses in. So we have A and B. So the correct answers are actually B and C. So if you answered C, which nobody did, that would also be a right answer. So going back here, REDCap Manager will take you to, gosh, I keep saying that. REDCap Messenger will take you to that instant messaging feature. So I'll show that off real quick. If we go in there and hit this button, it pops that tab up there so you can have conversations. But what this question is asking for is for specific comments on a question. So that is where we either go to the field comment log to see that entire list, or we go to that bubble where we can see comments on that question, or we can also navigate to the field comment log through there. So that is all the quizzes I have for you, everyone. So good job, and thanks for participating in those. But that also takes us to the end of my little tutorial here. I'm sure plenty of you will either have questions now or questions moving on into the future. So I want to ensure everybody that this is not the end of my teaching moment for everybody, or our teaching moment for everybody. If you find yourself in March or April being like, what the heck did Jordan say about the REDCap Manager? Oh man, he called it the manager, didn't he? That isn't even a thing in REDCap. So feel free to reach out to us. In the PowerPoint, I have Tasha's contact information as well as my own. So if you have questions for either of us, we'll be happy to answer them. And we also have office hours scheduled for everyone in January. So that'll be there to kind of give you more one-on-one time to go through more specific, maybe harder to answer questions than over email. But yeah, we just want to make sure that everybody's well supported, because data entry can be a lot of work. And if you're not having supports out there, it can be a big hassle. So we want to make sure you have that. But with that, I'll open it up to questions right now.
I have one quick question. Going back to having to save everything. So would it be not ideal, for example, Jared and I to both be working on the same portion of something because it would not really save?
That is a good question. So yes, I would say it is not a good idea to have two people at least in the same section of the quarterly reports. So if somebody was in the REDCap system and they clicked in here, what should happen is a message will display at the top and say, Jared is already in strategy activities. You won't be able to enter, or you should not enter in any data. However, that doesn't apply like if you were working in separate sections. So if Jared was working in this one, you could work in reach, adaptations, any of the other ones for this strategy. So you can still like tag team on that task, but just not in the same section at the same time. Good question.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a question about the comment function. Is that something that's intended for like within an agency, or is that something that MPHI would monitor and be like, hey, I have a question about this, and then you would answer it?
So that feature will be displayed across organizations. So we may check in there from time to time and see if anybody has specific questions on there.
So that one, while you can only see your strategies, you won't be able to see anyone else's strategies. That doesn't apply to the field comment log. There's no way to limit that by your organization. So if you put in comments, anybody will be able to see them. But that being said, we're not going to really look at them. We're not going to keep track of them in terms of responding in a timely fashion if you have questions, if that makes sense. Like if you have a time-sensitive question, I would recommend either messaging us in REDCap Messenger, which will send us actually an email alerting you that you have a message in REDCap Messenger, or just reaching out in the standard ways. But yes, you should know that everyone can see those comments, but that as long as you're comfortable with it, we don't really care how you use it.
Right, and that's a good point, I think, because like the field comments is more useful for people that are actively putting data into the system. For example, like supervisors that are going to constantly, well, maybe constantly in there working through data and checking to see how that's being entered or if there are any problems. So yeah, thank you for that question. Anyone else got anything? All right, well, looks like,
And I was just going to say, while we do have our hours, what are we calling them? Office hours. Office hours scheduled for the beginning of January. Our expectation and hope would be that you had all, before those office hours, logged into the system, kind of navigated through it, attempted to enter some data so that you can really come prepared to ask any questions that might have come up. Because we want it to be optimally useful for you, which it won't be as useful if it's the first time you've ever logged into the system. So just please plan accordingly to begin at least sort of begin entering some of your data before that time.
And on that note, if and when people have questions, whether it's at the office hours or time in between or in future, we'll be collecting them and putting them into a frequently asked questions sheet so that people in the future can refer back to them so that they can serve as a guide. So yeah, that is all I have. Thanks everybody for coming out and attending, and thank you to my wonderful colleagues, Aubrey and Sarah and Dory and Tasha for helping make all this possible, because none of this happens in a vacuum or by myself, to be sure, because I would be in a lot of trouble if I was just doing this by myself. So thanks everyone.
All right, well, you know where to find us. And we will be posting this video on YouTube because we're planning on going viral with it in the next probably week or so. So you'll be able to reference it. We'll get that link out to you. So good luck and happy REDcapping.
Thanks, Sarah and Jordan.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.